Hi, this is MJ from ReadGreatLiterature.com. Thanks for joining us for part 3 of our screencast series, Poems, Hear the Rhythm. In the screencast Traditional Rhythm and Meter Part 2, we learned that traditional poetic rhythm is created by alternating accented and unaccented syllables in each line. These units of accented and unaccented syllables are called feet. In Part 2, we learned about the 2 feet that create duple meter, the iamb and the trochee. We also learned that lines of traditional poetry are constructed by stringing several of the same type of foot together. This creates a poetic line that moves forward with a consistent beat or pattern. In this screencast, let's look at 2 more ways of using feet in poetry: triple meter and substitution feet. First, the anapest. The anapest foot sounds like ta-ta-da. For example, the word comprehend. The anapest consists of 3 syllables, 2 unaccented, followed by 1 accented syllable. Anapests are often used for humorous or children's poetry, though serious poems are also written in this meter. I'm sure you will recognize this famous poem, which happens to be written in anapestic meter. I think you'll be able to hear the lilt of the special triple beat. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. That is The Night Before Christmas by Clement C. Moore. Now the dactyl. The dactyl is also a triple foot, and it sounds like da-da-da. For example, the word parallel. It begins with an accented beat followed by 2 unaccented ones. This meter is rather infrequent in poetry written in English, but it makes quite an impression when it is used. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow chose this meter for his long narrative poem Evangeline, which is the story of an Acadian maiden who became separated from her fiancé Gabriel when her people were driven from their Canadian village by British soldiers. Many of these people ended up settling the Cajun lands of Louisiana. In these few lines from part 1 of that poem, we can see the dactylic pattern. Notice that the poet leaves off the last syllable of the dactyl at the end of each line, making the last foot of each line a trochee. This is the forest primeval, but where are the hearts that beneath it leaped like the roe when he hears in the woodland the voice of the huntsman? Where is the thatch-roofed village, the home of Acadian farmers, men whose lives glided on like rivers that water the woodlands, darkened by shadows of earth, but reflecting an image of heaven? Halfway through writing this very long poem, Longfellow somewhat regretted the choice of meter because dactylic meter is difficult to write in. But the meter truly fits the topic. It enforces a slowness of pace in reading that conveys dignity and solemnity suitable to the topic of an innocent, upright maiden who spends her life searching for her lost beloved. Now, on to substitution feet. No good poem is completely regular in its meter. Poets vary meter intentionally so that the poem does not sound like a metronome or a ticking clock. They also use variations in the meter to punch up particular words or phrases, or to create some kind of effect. Any of the 4 feet that we have defined to this point could be substituted for any of the others in a particular line of poetry. For instance, a trochee could be substituted for an iamb, as we have seen some examples of, or vice versa, or dactyls or anapests could be inserted into each other's poems, or any of the above. The poet could also use other types of feet as a substitute for any foot within any line to change up the rhythm a little. 2 often used substitution feet are the spondee and the pyrrhic. The spondee is two heavily accented syllables together. Da da. For example, the phrase back door. Spondaic substitutions are quite dramatic, creating points of hard accents in the midst of a poem. Here's a small example from Tennyson's poem Break, 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 which is about the ocean. The poem has 3 feet in each line, though the choice of foot varies from line to line. The spondees are in the first 2 lines. Break, break, break on thy cold gray stones, O sea, and I would that my tongue could utter the thoughts that arise in me. Now we can go on to the Pyrrhic. The Pyrrhic is the exact opposite of a spondee. It consists of 2 unaccented syllables, ta-ta. For example, the phrase at the. The Pyrrhic is used when the poet needs a little break from the accent pattern, or for quiet moments in the poem, or perhaps to manage the rhythm. Here are some examples of the Pyrrhic in a poem by Wilfred Owen called Anthem for Doomed Youth, in which he mourns the horrific and seemingly disregarded loss of life in World War I. The predominant meter of the poem is iambic. For examples of Pyrrhic substitutions, look for the feet that have 2 unaccented syllables. You can also find some trochaic substitutions, where trochees are used instead of iambs. What passing bells for these who die as cattle? Only the monstrous anger of the guns. What candles may be held to speed them all? Not in the hands of boys, but in their eyes shall shine the holy glimmers of goodbyes. In Rhythm and Meter Parts 2 and 3, we have talked about types of poetic feet. 2 duple feet, the iamb and the trochee, 2 triple feet, the anapest and the dactyl, and 2 substitution feet, the spondee and the Pyrrhic. There are some other types of feet we might encounter in poetry written in English, but these ones that we have covered are the most frequently found in traditional poetry. Of course, the point of our discussion in all of this is not to be able to name the feet in particular, but rather to become aware of the variations in meter and rhythm in different poems that are crafted carefully to echo or support the mood or the meaning or the feeling of a poem that a particular poet wants to convey. So now that you know something about poetic feet and traditional rhythm and meter, go out and enjoy how poets choose and vary meter to create a mood or add meaning to their lines. And I also hope you'll join us on readgreatliterature.com. Thanks.